key skill that every single live poker player has to have is the ability to quickly look at their opponent's stack and discern how deep they are, how many chips do they actually have. Since so much of our strategy is wrapped around effective stacks, if you can't do this well, you will find your life very strategically confusing. So I decided to create and release a quiz testing this skill set. So far, about 1,500 players have taken the quiz, and the average score is only about 76%. Good morning, how we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka Split Suit, and without further ado, let's jump right into this quiz, starting with question number 1. Alright, so this one is very simply, what is this player stack? You're looking at a picture of it, given a few different options down below, multiple choice style to make your life a little bit easier, and for what it's worth, the chip color schema in this quiz is whites are worth $1, reds are worth $5, the greens are worth $25 each, and the black chips are worth $100 each. Of course, these color schemas can change drastically from place to place, but that's what we're using for this particular quiz. So if we look very quickly at this one, we see 1 black chip, so there's $100. Looks like about 8 green chips for another 200 there, so we're 300. Count that stack of red over on the far left, now we're up to 400, and then count the rest of the reds in the middle, and we're at about 440. And that is the correct answer, and 76% of players got this one correct. Moving on to question number 2, again, what is this player's stack? And if I'm looking at this one, if the reds are lined up in stacks of 20 like they should be, we have $200 across those, right? 2 different lines of red. Each line of red is worth $100. We have the green chips, and it looks like we have about 10 of them, right? Half of a full stack, so that right there is going to be another 250, so 200 plus 250 is 450, and then throw in the last little bit of white, and looks like about 8 of those, so 458 would be the correct answer, and 77% of people got that one correct. And this one, again, is pretty simple, and if you play enough 1-2, 1-3, 2-5 kind of stuff, you're definitely get used to seeing these stacks, but you have to be able to count this stuff quickly. It's not overly complex, but with a little bit of practice, it can go a long way. Alright, moving on to question number 3. Again, what is this player's stack? Looks like we have 3 complete lines, 1 of green, 2 of red. A full line of green is $500, plus 2 different lines of red for another plus 200, so we're looking at 700. Throw in the little scrap bit of white right there, and about 705 would be the answer. You have to get good at being able to understand what a line or 20 chips of a certain denomination is. If you play something like 1-2, 1-3, you need to understand what that is in whites, in reds, and greens. If you play higher than that, then also understanding that in blacks and possibly higher denomination chips is going to be very helpful. But this is 705, and the overall answers, the people got this one correct. Looks like 78% of people nailed this one, which is great, and I'm glad to see the upward trend in people getting these kind of answers correct. Alright, moving on to question number 4. Where do your big denomination chips go? And of course the answer for this one is right out in front of all of your smaller chips, and 88% of people got this one correct, which I'm happy about. Just if you ever have bigger chips, especially again if you play 1-2, 1-3, if you have a black chip, if you play 2-5 and you have, blacks or purple chips, depending on exactly the color schema, those just go right out in front. Don't ever question it. Don't try to put them in a weird spot. Please do not put them in back. Just put them in front. Make them very easy and visible for everyone to see. Alright, moving on to question number 5. What is the value of a full rack of green chips? And of course a green chip is $25 in this quiz. And of course a rack holds 100 chips. So 100 times 25 equals 2.5k. Very simple. 87% of people got this one correct, which is wonderful. You definitely need to know how much a rack is, especially if you're buying chips from a cage and you're not super familiar or comfortable with it. Just make sure you know what a rack is worth, what a line is worth. It helps a tremendous amount just being able to double check and make sure you're getting the correct number of chips for the money that you're actually giving. Alright, onward to question number 6. What is this player's stack? And if we're looking at it, I always tend to count in the biggest denomination chips first, or I'll look for things that are very easy. Like a line of red is always going to be 100. I like to work in hundreds whenever possible, just because it makes life a little bit easier to just say, okay, that's how many different hundreds we're looking at, and then you have a rough ballpark on what their overall stack is. Looking here, we have 4 black chips, so that's $400. Looks like we have about a line of green, so that would be another 500, so 500 plus 400 is a $900 stack, plus the red, and it looks give or take like that's probably going to be about 75 in red, so I'd say about 975, and that is the correct answer. Now, if you're looking at it real quick from slightly zoomed down, maybe you miss a couple of red chips, or you add a couple of red chips, there's not much of a functional difference if the stack here is 970 versus 980. But if you're constantly getting something like 775 when looking at this stack, that can definitely be strategically problematic to say the least. Now, 81% of people got this one correct, which I'm happy with. Again, if you look at the bigger denomination chips and or counting in hundred, I think that's going to be very, very helpful for most people. Now, of course, if you're newer to this, you might be finding this a little bit tricky, and that's okay. This is definitely stuff you can practice between sessions. Just pull out some poker chips, stack them up, and then start counting it. And again, just get used to counting that quickly, and with a little bit of practice, it'll go a long way. You can also use a spreadsheet that I have. I'll leave a link for it in the description box, but in it you can just very quickly say how many black chips there are, greens, reds, whites, etc., and get the overall stack size. So if in this example, right, we have 4 of the black chips, we have a line of green, so 20 of those. Looked like we had about 15 red, 0 white, and again, 975 is the correct answer. So you can definitely plug away with that if you want. Again, this spreadsheet is totally free. I'll leave a link in the description box. This spreadsheet pack comes with this one, as well as many other spreadsheets to practice different kind of calculations between sessions. I definitely suggest picking them up if you haven't already. Alright, moving on to question number 7 in the quiz. This one changes it up a little bit. The question here is, you bet the nuts on the river for $150 into a $200 pot. Under the gun goes all in for $275 total, and the cutoff calls. Do you have the option to re-raise here? So different poker rooms use different rules, but as a typical default, this should have to be a full raise in order for you to have the option to 3-bet in this spot. After you bet and there's a shove for less than a full raise size, and there's a call from the cutoff, you really should not have the option to 3-bet here, and only 54% of players got this one correct. So as a strategic hint, if you thought that this kind of setup was going to happen a decent amount, where you bet, under the gun decides to shove over top, and cutoff might call a little liberally, but you still want the option to be able to 3-bet, bet this for something like 125 instead. That way when under the gun shoves, it's for more than a full raise, and as such you would have the option to 3-bet in this spot. Alright, moving on to question number 8. What is the value of a line of red chips which are worth $5 each? A line, of course, is 20 of them, so 20 times $5 equals $100. And 93% of people got this one correct. I believe this was the question that the most number of people got correct, which I'm happy about. It's a pretty darn simple one, and especially if you play 1-2 or 1-3, this is one you 100% have to know. Alright, moving on to question number 9, another one that has to do with bet and raise sizes. The question is, what is the maximum bet size you can make so that a shove from the button will reopen the action after the cutoff calls, thereby allowing you to put the cutoff all in, right? So you think that you're going to bet, cutoff will call, button will shove, and you still want to be able to get the cutoff all in that spot. So given that, the answer is $150. 62% of people got this one correct, and this is very similar to the previous one we talked about. We need to think about that full raise, which will give you the option to come back over the top. So if you go 150 and the button decides to shove for 300, that is a full raise, and as such you can come back over the top of this spot to try to get the cutoff all in at that point. And for what it's worth, one of the reasons why this is so important is because you don't want to get into a situation mid-hand where you have to get the dealer and the floor involved to figure out exactly what sizes are legal or not legal. If you can just understand this rule in advance, you will save yourself a lot of headache, because it gets very awkward when you're trying to still make strategy decisions after sitting there spending 1 or 2 minutes waiting for the floor to figure out what to do. Just trust me, if you can understand this rule better than they do, you will go a long way and make your life much simpler in real time. Live poker is very slow. Don't make it even slower by getting the floor involved if they don't need to be. Alright, moving on to the final question of the quiz. What is this player stack? And if I'm looking at this one, a complete line of green in the back is again $500. If we're looking at the black chips next, it looks like that's about 15 chips of that, so another 1500, so we're at 2k total. Looks like the greens on the left are going to be about 400-ish, maybe 375, throw in the rest of the red chips, and it looks like we're about 2400, give or take. Again, if you're plus or minus $5 or even 25 or 30 bucks, it's not going to break the bank. If you're off by hundreds of dollars, that's going to be seriously problematic. But in this one, 62% of people got it correct. It is $2,400, and again, you can use that spreadsheet we looked at earlier to confirm if you'd like. But again, understanding these sizes, especially if you play 2-5, 5-10, these kind of stack sizes can become more common, so you definitely have to be able to count them quite quickly. So hopefully you scored well on this quiz and also enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a comment down below. Just say, hey, I like this, and let me know if you want to see more like it in the future. But I also want to leave you with with a couple of different stat tidbits at the end, just because I'm a little bit nerdy like that, and I like just going through the data of these sort of things. So a couple things to leave you with. 18% of people got 100% on this quiz, which isn't all too bad all things considered. 43% of people missed at least 3 questions. That's not particularly great. Average score, like we talked about earlier, 76%. Not super shocking, I guess, but considering the people that are taking this quiz are likely more proficient at this, that just tells you that the average poker player is going to score way lower and just completely miss a tremendous amount of these things, especially since, of course, in real time, you're not getting multiple choice answers on stack sizes, so just remember your opponents aren't going to be particularly good at this. And then the last thing that I found extremely interesting was that the time to complete this quiz on average was 6.5 minutes. That's kind of crazy to say the least. That means people are spending on average 40 seconds trying to figure out stack sizes. And in real time, you don't have the ability to do that, especially on a street per street basis. So this is definitely a skill set you have to get stronger at. Now, of course, in real time, you can be looking at people's stacks between hands when after you folded, just sit there and make sure you get the lay of the land, understand what people's starting stacks are, but you have to get good at this skill set. And one of the best ways to do that is to practice. Things like this quiz are helpful. And also my new live cash game workbook has tons of exercises just like this one, both for the overall stack size calculations and also for the kind of raise and bet size stuff that we were looking at a little bit in this quiz as well. If you're interested in learning more about that, splitsuit.com/live, that's LIVE, to learn more. Pick up your copy. You can also look for it on Amazon if you prefer paperbacks, but this is definitely something I would suggest going through, not just for these skill sets, but lots and lots of others, everything from pot odds to implied odds to multi-way pots to straddle pots to ranges and everything in between. Again, splitsuit.com/live to learn more, pick up your workbook, and start working on the things that matter between sessions. That way, in real time, you have the brain power to figure out the correct optimization of lines, not sitting there trying to figure out basic things like pot odds or stack sizes. But anyway, that's going to wrap it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any comments or questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you back shortly with a brand new video. In the meantime, good luck out there and happy grinding.